Hey guys, welcome to Wait and See with Celeste Lynch. I'm Celeste Lynch, and let's get started with today's episode. So, as you can see by the title, today I really want to talk about college admission, standardized tests, education, and quote, the system. So, that's like a really broad topic, and I really wanted to preface this by saying I'm no expert in the subject at all. So, I'm finishing up my sophomore year right now, and I'm just starting to do some research. I'm very interested in college, and I have really high aspirations when it comes to education. So, I know some things, I don't know everything. And I just also wanted to talk about like where I am as a student. So as I said, I'm finishing up my sophomore year and planning for next year. I'm going to take four APs. So I'm taking AP Calculus AB, AP Language Arts, AP US History, and AP Chemistry. And this year I basically took all honors in one AP class. So I guess you could say I'm like good at school, or smart. There's a difference. I don't talk about that like later in the episode. So I have not taken any of the standardized tests that are usually for college. So actually tomorrow I'm taking my AP World History exam, and I wanted to talk about everything today just because if I like talk about the test too much, my results could get canceled, and I don't want that to happen. And we'll talk about more of that later. So I want to start off talking about standardized tests since we're talking about that. So I think we all know, at least here in America, like the SAT and the ACT are a big deal. I think mostly the SAT, at least in my area. So it's math and English, and it's out of 1600. And so I don't I don't like the idea of standardized tests to get into college. I know it's not the only factor, but it's definitely like plays a role. One of my main problems with the SAT is just how like pay to play it is. So it's like someone could be a mediocre student and their parents could pay like tons of money for tutors and resources and taking the test over and over and over again until like it just doesn't become, it's not actually the kid's like ability, it's more just how much money the family has, because it costs like I think about $100 to take the test. Like I'm not sure, I didn't really research that specifically, but it costs quite a bit of money to take the SAT. So there's people taking it like two, three, four, 5 times to improve their score, and they're super scoring, which I think is fine. Like, but think about it. Like, if you take the test, I don't know, 4 times, and you get more practice taking the actual test, and that costs money. There's definitely a lot of free resources too. There's like Khan Academy, I know, is a really popular and really good resource, and you can take like practice tests, and there's tons of things because really like the SAT, I think it's more about how much you prepare at this point than anything, because the the math is up to algebra 2, I believe, and you take it in your junior year. So most people are like finishing up their junior year when they take the test, and like at grade level, I believe is algebra 2. So personally, I took algebra 2 my freshman year because I don't know, I'm a little crazy. And like that's gonna be interesting for me because I feel like I'm gonna forget a lot of it. Hopefully not. Like geometry and stuff, that is not my vibe. But this isn't really about me. This is about like in general. So yeah, there's a lot of free resources. I don't know much about the reading section. I know there's like the comprehension and stuff. This year I was supposed to take the PSAT, but that was canceled because of COVID-19. So I don't know if I will take the PSAT. It's like a preparation for the SAT, and that's my other problem with like the people who run the SAT is by the College Board. And the College Board is a non-profit organization, but they make tons of money. Like, think about it. They run AP, SAT, PSAT, and you have to like pay to take all those tests. And they sell prep books too, so like they sell prep books for the PSAT, which is to prepare you to take the SAT. Then they sell prep books for the SAT and sell you the test for the SAT. And then you take the SAT. Like some people will take the SAT like tons of times. I know someone, like I know of someone, this person I met at an event, who told me they have taken the SAT every year since the 7th grade. Like, that person obviously has an advantage, and I'm not saying that's like terrible because they're preparing, but like, that's so much money invested into that that I feel like it's not even about your skill as a student. It's more about your skill or even just like access to practicing and being good at the test. That really like bothers me, and also it's not a good measurement, I feel like, of your actual ability. I think I've said that a lot. Yeah, like you can just be a bad test taker. I know for me, like test anxiety is a thing. And those tests last like all day, and it's an intense environment. So I can definitely see where it can be like it can be hard because you can be a really smart person and just not be that great at taking tests or not being able to like focus that much for that amount of time. Like, how can you expect people to focus for like 3 to 4 hours on these boring texts? Like, not to sound obnoxious, but really, I think that it's it's less about your ability and more about your ability as a student and more as your ability to prepare. So I know like admissions officers take that into account, like money, what type of school you went to, what kind of area you're growing up in, to see like obviously someone who goes to like a prep school is going to have a lot more attention geared towards the SAT than someone who just goes to a normal private school, maybe in a more like a poorer area. So that's something that I don't really like. And as far as like the system, I want to talk about like the pressure there is on students to do well. So there is a lot of pressure about like being the best, like be the best at everything. And it's hard to place people in that because there's people who are more artistic, there's people who are musical, people who are great at sports, people who are great at math, other people are good at English. I don't know where I fall into that. I feel like I'm definitely not good at arts. That's just one of those things, or sports. I think I'm more of like a math person, but I also really like history, and that's like, I guess it's like for another episode. And so there's like this big pressure, like be the best, do the best, get into the top schools, do all of this. And I think we've gotten a lot better about that, like as a society, because we've seen how much it has affected past generations, like the millennial generation especially. A lot of them were like told like, oh, go to the best schools, do all this, like doesn't matter how much debt you get. And then now they have like tons of debt and they don't even have like great jobs. And yeah, like it's one of those questions, like is college really necessary? I feel like in my opinion college, like formal university education, is not necessary, but definitely post-secondary education is important. Like even if it's a trade school, community college, online school, whatever it may be, it's important to keep educating yourself, because at this point in our society, like a high school diploma doesn't really mean much like to get a job, like a good job that can actually keep a family sustained. And so I think like it's just important to be educated and to keep learning, because like plumbers make way more money than a lot of jobs that require like a 4-year degree. And there's so many things that you can do with 2 years or just apprenticeships, anything like that. I think we're doing a really good job like as a nation to keep like pushing that more and more, because not everyone is good at school. Like that's the thing. There's definitely a difference between being smart and good at school, because you can be like, a farmer, right? And you can be like an amazing farmer, but you don't really, maybe you're not great at like math and science, and that's like not super necessary to be a farmer, but you can still be intelligent when it comes to like handling crops and knowing how to take care of them. So I think there's a big difference between like intelligence and being good at school, like education levels. Not everyone needs a 4-year degree. Like we need people to fix bathrooms, we need people to fix cars, do automotive, all of that. And like I know some of those jobs are going to be taken over by robots eventually. And yeah, that's like a whole other episode again, because I could talk about that for a long time. But what I want to say is like we're doing a lot better, but I think there's a lot that can be done. I think there needs to be a lot more opportunity for people who aren't necessarily like great at school. There's no reason why like everyone should go to college, because if everyone goes to college, then there's less of a, like it becomes less significant. And that can be kind of detrimental, because like it's kind of like money with like inflation, you know, as there is more and more money, like if the government prints more money, the money becomes worth like less. And so it takes more money to actually do something. It's the same type of thing. Like if everyone has a 4-year degree, then the 4-year degree doesn't really mean much. And a 4-year degree at this point doesn't really mean success like it used to mean. There's people who have 4-year degrees and, have tons of debt. And there's people who, like, didn't go to college, right after high school, they started a business. I know Haley Pham, one of my favorite YouTubers, she didn't go to college, so after, and I'm not saying this is like everyone, this is really like a special case, her case, but she didn't go to college, and she focused on her YouTube, focused on her business, and was able to buy a house at the age of 18. Like, that's super impressive, and I'm not saying like, oh, like, don't go to college, become a YouTuber. That's definitely, it's something, like, if you already have YouTube, that's great, and if you're doing well, what I'm saying is, like, there's other things. If you have a business, like, and it's already has momentum, why stop the momentum when you can just take the plunge? Especially when you're younger, you have more, like, space, right? Because as you're younger, you don't have, like, a family to take care of, at the age of 18, like, if you just fully immerse yourself in a business, or not even 18, 18 is kind of young, but at the age of, like, 20, if you just immerse yourself in a business, then, like, you have less risk, If you lose money, you are on the line, but not, like, an entire family, at least in most cases. And yeah, like, back to the whole, like, pressures on students, I think it's just more important to be passionate about something. So whether that be science or art, like, really just delve into that and, take all the classes you can about that and focus yourself into that and just enjoy yourself too. Like, I think it's important to realize that we're not machines. People are not meant to just be, like, sitting at a desk studying for, like, hours on end every single day. That's not good for you. And, like, as a young person, you have less responsibilities than someone who's not young. And so it's just important to really, like, take that time, because, like, when else in life are you gonna just be surrounded by your friends? Like, high school, even if you don't have a lot of friends, like, the few friends you have probably are from school, and you probably met them in your classes. So I know, like, in my case, I have most of my friends come from my classes. So I can think of, like, my chemistry class. It's a hard class, like, it's not easy. I like chemistry though, and part of the reason why I like chemistry, I mean, now because of, like, the whole shutting down, it's kind of different, but my lab partner, she and I have been, like, close friends for a long time, and we've gotten closer this year just because we'll just do our little experiments, and sometimes we mess them up. A lot of the times we mess them up and then in a hurry have to, like, fix them and, get the data and stuff. But the point is, like, we enjoy ourselves while we're doing the work, and I think that's so important. Because, yeah, like, this is the time to have fun. This is the time, not to go crazy. Like, obviously what you do now affects you in the future, but it's important to still have fun. And yeah, like, it's also important to know how to make human connection, because if you're just, like, a robot that sits behind your desks and studies all the time, like, where's your personality? That's not to say, like, people who study all day don't have a personality, because I know I'm someone who, like, studies a lot, but I don't, like, I always make sure to keep the time to see people, have fun, like, hang out with friends. And I know I'm really blessed to have parents that aren't, like, super pushy about my grades, because I've always been, like, pretty self-motivated. And so they've never really had to, like, push me to be like, oh, do your homework, did you do your homework, like, do you need help with your homework? No, like, it's been like, okay, like, do it. And then sometimes they'll ask, like, oh, did you do it? And I'll be like, yeah, I did it. And that's important. Like, I think it's important when you're young to, like, be able to explore all different aspects of life, because, again, like, as I was saying, there's different types of intelligence. There's, like, emotional intelligence, and that's something that I think people need to develop a lot. If you're not with other people, how are you going to learn to deal with other people? Does that make sense? Like, your people skills are just as important, because especially for a lot of competitive schools, like, you have to do an interview, and schools like Brown, Harvard, the Ivy Leagues, the schools that really just have tons and tons and tons of applicants, like, you have to stand out, you have to have a personality, because everyone is, like, the best in their class. Everyone is top 5%. Everyone, is doing great things. And so you have to really stand out and make yourself seem unique. That was something that they said. So this summer I was lucky enough to go to this event at Harvard because I live pretty close. I live in New England. So I went to Harvard and they had this forum with like students, Harvard students, talking about admissions and like how to get into Harvard basically, or how they think they got into Harvard. And so a lot of them said like a lot of the same things that I'm saying now, which is, being passionate and taking times for projects that they really enjoy. And they even said themselves like a lot of the problems with the system, but just because the system isn't meant for you or doesn't favor you doesn't mean that you can't do it. There's so many things you can do. Like college is crazy expensive, but you can apply for financial aid, like scholarships. I know something that I have to work on probably this summer and next summer is just working a ton, like, those essays, like those essay contests. Because if you write, a lot of times you can even like recycle the essays. If you write like 10, 15 essays and you get one scholarship, like it's worth it, especially with debt and everything. And a lot of schools are taking a lot better approaches to reduce student debt and work with you. But if you have the desire and the motivation to go to one of these top schools, like do it. And I also want to say like it's not necessary to go to like an amazing school because university is university. I mean, if you go to like a super big name school, it'll give you the connections. I think that's what people are really looking for, like for job wise. If you are going somewhere like Harvard or Yale or Princeton, you're going to be in more direct contact with people who went there, alumni who, own businesses and do all these things, and they're more willing to help someone who went to their alma mater. But if you go to like a state school, or not even just a state school, if you just go to a good school, and you work hard, like you'll get those opportunities. Because someone who is super smart and did all this stuff in high school but becomes lazy in college, like even if they went to the best school, they're not going to be as like, successful as someone who maybe didn't go to the best school but really grinded and did it well and put in all of the effort. So it's not where you go, it's what you do. And that's super important. That's something that I have to remind myself a lot of because I know for me, I want to go to Brown. That's something that I've said like a ton. I would love to go to Brown. There's like other schools I would want to go to too. Like I'm not dead set on Brown, but that's kind of like my dream school, quote unquote, as I guess you would say. And so I know like if I apply to Brown and don't get in, I'm still gonna be successful, because I work hard and I can look for those connections. I can look for opportunities, and that's just something I think everyone should know. Like even if you don't get into your quote dream school, like it probably wasn't even meant for you because like when you're applying to schools, it's where you want to go, but then they have to choose if they want you. And I think at the end of the day, like you're gonna end up where you're meant to be. Like everything happens for a reason, and so who knows, like maybe going to a less prestigious school allows you to focus on like a project that you start because I don't know, you're bored, and then it becomes like a billion-dollar business, million-dollar business, who knows. And yeah, like I was saying, like this is just what I want to talk about, like admissions, the system. I think one of the main things that they're working on now, especially, I don't know a lot about like elementary. I don't know about elementary education that much because I haven't been in elementary education in a long time. I'm gonna be a junior. But I know like one of the things was gifted programs and all of that, how they're getting rid of that because like it definitely can be hurtful later. So when I was in elementary school, I was good at school. I was a smart kid. Like I learned how to add and subtract faster and like I learned to read fast. And so I was, given like other work and stuff, and it made me feel really good. It definitely was an ego boost, which can be bad later on because I was so used to not working, like just everything being easy and constantly being praised. And then like middle school, high school came around. And middle school, I didn't get like all of the praise and like ego and stuff, but I was still doing well without like much work. And high school came around, and in some subjects, I would say not all of them, in some subjects, I could just like do everything with like minimal effort. And then this year, it kind of was like a reality check, like, oh, like you actually have to study, you actually have to work. And I know that's the experience of a lot of people who were in similar things in elementary school. Because there's that joke of like, oh, like I was a genius in elementary school and then like now I'm stupid, or I used to read all the time and now I can barely like make myself read, or people who were like A+ students and then all of a sudden are like getting C's. And there's nothing wrong with getting C's, like, you know, C's get degrees. Like if school isn't your thing, you know, you just want to like do something else, that's fine. As long as you're getting educated, you know. Anyway, the point is like this is the point is like work ethic is better than just like natural intelligence, because natural intelligence can only get you so far. Like if you just rely on your natural intelligence, you're gonna cap at some point. But if you rely on steady hard work and grit, like that is so much better. And being one of those like quote smart kids, like labeled as a smart kid early on, it can be difficult to reach out for help, which is something I've had to learn. Like, but really, like teachers are there to help you. At least in my case, I know not every school is as good as my school. I go to a public school and it's a good public school. The teachers are very supportive, and like I really like my school. I know a lot of people don't like my school, but I like it, and I feel like the teachers are very open to helping you out. Um, if you ask for the help, they're willing to give it to you. Staying after school for math was something that I did a lot in 7th grade when I took Algebra 1, because I don't know, I was not good at Algebra 1 for some reason, and my teacher, she was really great about letting me stay after school and making up assignments and just getting the help I needed, and it significantly improved my grades. And then just whenever you do something, like it's so important to ask for help if you need it, because you know they're there to help you. There's so many resources, and if the teacher can't help you or they don't have the time, they can always point you in the direction of someone who can. And other students too, like I know my classes are very, I'm lucky enough to be in class with people who are very collaborative, so working in groups, a lot of teachers like put us to work in groups, and that's been so helpful, especially in my history and math classes, surprisingly. Oh, in my chemistry classes, so in my chemistry class, we all work at these lab tables, and we have different lab groups. And so one lab table can fit like 3 or 4 groups, which is great because if one group is sort of struggling, then we can ask like another group, hey, like how is this working for you? Or are we understanding these directions correctly? Whereas if we were isolated, we probably wouldn't get things done as well. We wouldn't make like the discoveries we thought we were gonna make. And in history too, we work a lot in groups for like the DBQs and stuff for the AP exam, which is something I want to talk about too with like the response to COVID. Yeah, so working together is definitely great because sometimes there's things that you just don't understand, or like at least for my history class, we have such a thick textbook. I think it's like over 1,000 pages. I'm not exaggerating. And they like we have to read, you know, big chunks of the textbook every night. And so sometimes like you just need to skim over it because, you know, you have tons of other work, or sometimes you don't even get to read it, or you only read part of it, and then you get in a group and everyone can sort of like talk about the different parts that they picked up on in their interpretation of it. And also just like the supportiveness of like, oh, you stayed up till 1 in the morning doing this, like me too. And a lot of us, I feel like there's a lot of the same people in all my classes, which is nice because then we can all sort of talk about like, oh, like we have like 3 tests in one day, or we have like 2 tests in a row. And that's always something to like, just the companionship, the camaraderie, I guess is the word I'm looking for, is really great. And then I was talking about my math class. So my math class usually has us work in pairs. Um, this wasn't as beneficial in my math class because I feel like I would work a lot better by myself, just because in math I'm not very fast. Like I have to be really meticulous about how I work, or else I make careless mistakes. And so when someone else finishes faster than you, like it's really easy to just kind of like copy the rest of it, or you just be like, oh yeah, like I'll get the same thing even if you're not. But it's helpful because you can like check your work, and then you don't have to like embarrass yourself in front of the class when you think that like it's not right. When you think that it's right and you're not, because that's happened to me. Like I'll be so confident. I remember, I think it was in Algebra 1, we were doing this activity, and I was so confident in my answer. I was like, oh yeah, the answer is like 96, and then I put it on the board and I was like, yeah. And then the answer was like 1,000. And the teacher was like, this is all wrong. And that was a little embarrassing. I'm not gonna lie. But I was saying, like, collaboration is so important. So if you're in like a class, it's a hard class, find one buddy. I know, like, in high school, you like probably have a friend in your class, but if you're new or you don't have a lot of friends, like, literally just the person next to you, like, just ask them to be like, hey, like, do you understand this? Or, dang, like, the teacher's so annoying. I don't know. Don't say your teacher's annoying. That's like a bad thing to be saying on a podcast. But that's what I mean. Like, just find something to bond over. I know in my English class, this girl and I don't know if she's listening. I hope she's listening to this. She knows who she is. She and I just bonded over, like, thinking the teacher was crazy. And the teacher's really nice. Like, she's crazy, but she's, like, a great teacher. So if she ever gets a hold of this, like, hi, you know who you are. You're great, even though I think you're crazy sometimes. The point is just, like, having that sense of unity is really nice. And I was actually reading a book. I'm gonna, like, segue into the book I was reading called Leaders Eat Last. So I think I've mentioned this on previous episodes, but they talk about, like, the circle of safety. And I think that's so important because when we're working in a team and we all, like, trust each other, people are more likely to just spitball ideas even if they're not sure if they're right, because they know, like, they're supportive and the people are trying to work towards a common goal. And yeah, like, it's just important to make a group, not even a group, like 2 people, 3 people, 4 people, you know, who you can just rely on and just talk about. I know there's, like, group chats for classes, like, big ones. I'm not in any of the group chats because I have an Android, but that's beyond the point. I don't want to be in those group chats. But, like, just text, have, like, a buddy you can text and just be like, hey, do you know how to do number 7? Or, like, yo, or have you studied for this test? I know for me, like, I'm not as bad about it anymore, but I used to kind of be bad about, like, not knowing when tests were. And then if we would all be talking about something and someone mentions a test, I'm like, oh, there's a test. And I started studying, and that's great. Collaboration is great. My AP class, I was talking about my AP World History class, has been really great about that. So tomorrow is our exam, and someone made, like, this shared document with, like, tons of notes. So for the exam, we can't use, it's like open note, open book because of the whole taking it at home because of coronavirus. So we have a 45-minute DBQ, and you can use, like, any of your class resources as long as they're not, like, shared documents. So what we can do is we can make, like, a copy of the document and then have it, but people can't be, like, all in document at the same time, if that makes any sense. So if you're familiar with Google Docs, you know, you can make a copy and then have it as your own. And so people made that, you know, working together on review projects has been really great. And it's just, like, that sense of all doing it at the same time. I know after the exam, we're gonna have, like, a little powwow on Zoom sort of at night, and we can't really talk about the exam that much, but we can sort of be like, oh, it was good, it was bad, you know what I mean? Plus everyone in the world is taking it at the same time, which is kind of problematic because, like, international students have to take their exams at, like, 2 in the morning sometimes, which is really not fair. I actually watched a video about this on YouTube recently, and they have, like, so they have to pay extra because they are foreign students. They are international students, right? They have to pay extra to take the class or, like, to take the test, but the College Board won't make them, like, a separate test, which I think is crazy because they make a separate test for people who couldn't, like, hand it in or just couldn't take the test that day. But they're not doing that for international students, and it's just not fair. Like, the fact that they have to take it at 2 in the morning, 4 in the morning, those aren't optimal conditions, and taking it at home is not an optimal condition. My house, like, I don't have any siblings or anything, like, it's just me and my parents, and even sometimes, like, daily life is kind of loud. And I can imagine, like, if you have 3 younger siblings running around, like, even if you're taking it at 2 p.m., then, like, it's gonna be more difficult. Plus, there's so many technical difficulties that can go along with it because this is the first AP exam I'm ever gonna take. But I know that usually they're on paper, which is a lot harder to mess up in the sense of, like, it doesn't matter if Wi-Fi cuts out or your computer dies because you're doing it on paper. But this time it's on the computer. I'm very nervous. I have been writing DBQs all day because my exam is one question. So that can be a blessing and a curse because if it's something I know a lot about, I can just like whip it out real quick. But if it's something I don't know much about, with the time pressure too, it's gonna be difficult because the the DP I'm talking about the AP exam. I know the world history exam for AP is like 3 hours long, which is insane. But like one essay, it just seems like it's scary. I'm nervous. I know of someone who took their like AP calculus exam and then like they couldn't hand it in or like they slept through it. It's something like that. And they now have to take it in June. So, yeah, I don't want to take this in June. I just want to get it done with. I'm really confused as to what we're going to do for the rest of the year because my last day of school is like June 17th, I believe. And it's online school, which is weird because the last day of school usually is like, it's just exams. Because in my school, there's a last day of school. It's a full day of school after exams, but no one goes to it because what's the point? Like, you already finished your exams. So, usually the last day of school is like an exam day, and I'll have like one exam. Um, because my school has like A, B, C, D, E, F, G period, but you only have 5 classes a day. It's different now, like with online school, but that's how it is during like regular school. And so they'll have it like two a day, and the last day is just one, which is great because you get out of school at like 9 in the morning. And I live close to my school, so I can literally just like walk home. But the truth is, like, those are the best days. 'Cause it's nice out, and then all your friends, like, you see them after, you're like, yeah. Or you're like, oh, like, I did really bad, but it doesn't matter because you're not coming back anyway, and you won't get the results, like, till a few hours later, or maybe the next day. That's the thing I like about my teachers is a lot of them are fast graders. Last year I had a teacher who was terrible about grading. Great person, like, she was amazing, but she could not grade, like, for anything. I remember she, like, lost my test one time. So all she had was the essay portion. Like it was stapled together, but she lost all of it except the essay. I don't know how that happened. But anyway, what I'm saying is like, what am I even talking about? What I'm saying is like, it's great. My school is good. The last day of school is fun. I'm definitely like discombobulated at this point, and my whole like thing about being more structured, maybe not going that great. But yeah, I just want to like talk about this because it's something that's been on my mind. Especially going into my junior year. My junior year is, if you're like not aware of the way it works here in the States, or you know you're kind of old and forgot how high school works, or you're young and like you don't really know how it works. Your junior year is usually your hardest year, and that's definitely going to be the case for me. As I'm going to be taking some pretty difficult classes, plus like SATs, and just it's nerve-wracking for my GPA because I have like a decently high GPA so far, and I don't want it to go down because of the hard classes. I want it to go up because the thing, like, you have to have that balance because AP and honor classes at my school, they give you like a boost in your GPA, so it's like scaled differently, which affects your rank because on our report cards we see our unscaled GPA, but when we have like our rank, it's calculated with the scale. So if you get like a B in an AP class, it's worth more than getting a B in an honors class. Or if you get an A in like a CP class that's like regular for us, it's worth less than getting, I think it's worth less than getting a B in an AP class. So you have to strike that balance because you don't want to like get bad grades in hard classes, but if you're getting like super good grades in really easy classes, it might not be worth as much. So it's all about like that balance. And also colleges, like if you care about college, they want to see that you're like challenging yourself in like in areas that you care about, or in all areas. It depends what you're interested in, what kind of student you are. Everyone's different. Honestly, like, not to be corny, but follow your heart. Like, if you're super passionate about music, even if like it seems like there's not a lot of career prospects, there's tons. Like, just do what you can, do what you love, because at the end of the day, like, that's most important. It's more important to be happy than to, be dissatisfied doing something that, society or like the system, let's say that, thinks is right. Like, don't go to medical school if you really don't care about being a doctor. Like, plus that like translates into your work, because if you get a degree in something that you kind of hate, and then you get a job in that thing, and you're just in there for 20 years and you hate it, like, it's going to translate into your work, it's going to translate into your life. That's what that book I was reading about even talked about too. And so, yeah, it's just important to follow your passions in everything you do. Don't stress yourself out. Work hard. Take advantage of opportunities, even if the odds seem like they're against you, because at the end of the day, hard work and grit will always beat natural intelligence or money, at least for the most part. So I think I'm going to wrap it up here. Thanks for listening. This was an episode that I was kind of looking forward to talking about, and I think today was like a really good day. So when this goes up, I'll either be about to take my AP exam, or be taking it, or be just done taking it. I wanted to record before, just not to risk my results getting like avoided. Yeah, so thanks for listening. If you'd like to support the podcast, follow us on Spotify, listen to us on Apple Music or Spotify or Anchor, Google Podcasts. It's all on there. And follow us on Instagram at Wait and See Podcast. Yeah, leave your feedback through the DMs, and have a great day or night. Be kind, and don't forget to share the podcast with your friends. Thank you.